So I just want to welcome everyone to the Art of Networking and Creating Meaningful Connections webinar. This is the first webinar like this that we're doing for MSM, and we have such a great mix of people on today. So we have current MSM students, we have MSM alum, we have MSM board members, we have faculty with us, we have other members from the college. And it's so great to bring everybody together for an event just like this. It's really exciting. I think, as most of you know, this is kind of a two-part series. Hopefully, most people can make it to both, but today is all about networking and creating those connections and hearing from some great networkers that we put together. They have a great program for you. And then as you're learning and honing your skills, or maybe just even refreshing some of your skills with the session today, we hope that then you can put some of that to use in the near future, whether you're coming to the in-person networking event on Thursday or just at your next networking event, wherever that may be. So thank you everyone for coming and spending your lunch hour with us. We're so excited to have you here. Our two guest speakers today that I'm so excited for you to hear from. First, we have Roger. Roger is an MSM alum from cohort 7, and you'll be getting a little bit of background about him. So I think some of his classmates might be here. And then we have Sarah, and Sarah was a former marketing director from Colgate-Palmolive, and hopefully will be joining our advisory board soon. No pressure, Sarah. And like I said, they've really put together something awesome. So I'm going to stop talking because you've all heard enough from me over the years and really turn it over to them. If anyone has any questions or anything while they're going through the program, please put them in the chat. I'll be monitoring the Q&A, and then we have some time for Q&A that we'll do at the end of the presentation. But off to Sarah and Roger.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jackie, for the warm welcome and introduction. And I'm so excited to be here and, talking with everyone today, and grateful I get a chance to get to know everyone. It was very nice to meet, Jackie through the process, and Roger. So I've heard many great things about the program and learned so much. So excited to be here. And thank you guys for having us. Just a quick overview of the agenda. This is meant to be informal. So, please, if you have any questions, as Jackie said, drop it in the chat. Any comments, happy to get to it throughout the presentation, but we'll definitely make sure we get to it at the end. And then just in terms of the agenda for today, a few things that we'll be covering. You can see here, first is just around elevating your network. I think what you'll learn and the themes throughout the presentation is it's really, an art and a science. And it's one of those things that people don't really teach you. And you kind of, have to kind of learn as you go and enjoy the process. And I think you'll hear some, firsthand experiences and examples from Roger and I. So we'll start off with a little bit of fundamentals around that, and then move into the management mindset. So for those who, are currently, working, or those who are, in the process of making a transition, just really understanding, how to network with your team, as well as senior managers, and what are some things to think about. And then the third section will be around expanding your circle of influence. So this has been really important, at least for me throughout my career, and really just opening up your mindset around who is in your network. A lot of times you focus in particularly on who you work with, your immediate circle, but it's really much bigger than that. So it's a little bit about how do you change your mindset around, who your network is. And then lastly, showcasing your success. We wanted to include this because this is just really important reminder for us throughout our careers to think about a good way to showcase your success. And it's helpful, through the networking process, but it's also just really helpful to make sure you're doing that. And so Roger has a couple of tips and tricks on how to do that. So we'll walk through that. And a little bit more about me. So again, like I said, so happy to be here. I, have over 15 years of experience in, marketing and strategy in the CPG industry. So I spent the last 13 years at Colgate-Palmolive, doing really a range of everything from general management to innovation to strategy to integrated marketing and digital media. And I love it. So very passionate about the space. If anyone's interested, happy to answer any questions about it. And I actually didn't go to FIU, like I said, but I've learned a ton about the school through Jackie and Roger. I did go to Cornell, so native New Yorker, born and raised in New York. So I went to Cornell for undergrad and also business school. And recently actually moved to Florida. So recent, life transition for me. Happy to answer any questions. I've been here for about a year and a half in Florida, but born and raised in New York. And you can see with the pictures, I have two kids, 6 and 9. That's Hunter and Emmy. We love sun and surf. So kind of a balance of both. Really just love everything. Not a pickleballer, but, may get there eventually. Love tennis and running and reading and kind of a self-proclaimed nerd. So really love anything related to learning. And that's a little bit more about me. And I'll pass over to Roger, who you guys know, but he'll give a little bit more background on him.
She's not a pickleballer yet. I think that's the
Yes.
part that she wanted to. I do want to clarify. It's the best sport in the world, by the way. Okay. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jackie, for the kind introduction. Hello, everyone. Again, my name is Rogelio Mansour, aka Roger. A lot of you know me as Roger. I'm currently a senior program manager at Citi, a former graduate of the MSM marketing program at FIU, and currently serve on the advisory board for the program. My goal as an advisory board member is to develop the skill set of the students for what Fortune 500 companies like Citi look to employ. I think it's very important. I'm a husband, father of 2 young, very strong-willed boys. And when I'm not spending time either at work or with my family, I have 2 passion projects, which is learning and building with artificial intelligence, aka AI, and playing pickleball. Funny enough, I just played a tournament on Sunday and made it to bronze. So not terrible, but not gold, not quite gold. And one interesting thing is I have a great story of how playing pickleball actually got me a 6-figure job offer from somebody. So it's just playing pickleball, networking through pickleball, funny enough. So I do want to share that with you guys later on. And I want to highlight the fact that I didn't get these opportunities by chance, right? Instead, I became visible to the right people in a meaningful way. So again, this is the art of creating meaningful connections and networking. So we're going to go ahead and address some of those and share some tips and topics. As Sarah mentioned, it is very informal. We have an agenda to follow a structure, but we are going to share a lot of our experiences. This is a quick welcome note, and I'm just going to share something that I learned while working with some top tier talent, which is be intentional about your career, right? A lot of us tend to allow careers to happen to us, but I think if you take the initiative to be intentional about what you want to accomplish in your career within the timeline that you're going to be working, I think it's one of the crucial components to then guide your networking plan. Networking is a learned skill. It requires ongoing learning and development. Big thing is time, practice, and patience. And funny enough, I'll zoom down to this quote that says here, slowly is the fastest way to get to where you want to be in your career. I heard that quote recently and I said, wow, how interesting, because if networking takes time, it is a slow process, but it is the fastest and absolute fastest way to get to where you want to be professionally. So just a brief welcome note. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah, and she's going to start talking about some of the topics we have to share with you today. Back to you, Sarah.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah.
Before I dive into some of the content, I just wanted to take a quick poll with the group, and feel free, type it in the chat. When you guys think of networking, what's one word that comes to mind? Just curious, really top of mind. Feel free to, throw it in the chat. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, good. So, I see a lot of the positive aspects, which is great, right? Around building connections, relationships. I saw a happy hour thrown in there. But here we go. This is important though. I do see, not to put you on the spot, Tony, but awkward, right? Authenticity, really important. And this is why, we wanted to ask everyone this question, because it is a lot of mixed feelings, when it comes to networking. And as Roger said, it's a learned skill. So there are different ways that you can kind of hone it over time to be able to learn, grow, and really give yourself those opportunities that you're looking for. So it could feel a lot of different things. And we're going to touch on that. But, it's really, I would say the two different areas we want to focus on is one, how do you build an effective network? So that's one area we'll touch on. And then the second part, just being, open with the group, is really overcoming some networking challenges. And once you identify what those are, you can think about different ways to structure your conversations and really be intentional as you start to build out those different networking meetings. So we're going to touch on all of it, which I think will be great. And if anyone has any questions on it, feel free. So, within the first bucket, building an effective network. So this is really important in terms of a few different strategies that you can think about as you do that. And again, networking is really an always on exercise. So it's not something that you do just before you're looking for a new role, or you're starting to make a transition. It's really something that you want to think about always. Really, I look at it as kind of always on. And then also I like to change our mindset around it as, it could be fun, right? It's something, it is about relationship building, and is about making those connections, and you really don't know where it's going to go. Some conversations are almost like planting seeds, and you don't know where it's going to go yet. So, I think that the first tenet in terms of kind of building that effective network is having a plan, and that helps you be more intentional in your conversations. The second area is around just be aware of what is stopping you. What are your fears, right? Kind of get it out in the open. You could be a little bit nervous before that meeting, before talking with a senior manager. So just being aware of it and being open and authentic about it is really important. The third is around building your internal and external network. Like I think I mentioned in the beginning, a lot of people think about network as, again, your team, or the people that you work with directly. But I'll give an example, even with this, seminar, this kind of transpired through really my own network, and family and friends, put me in touch with Jackie, who is developing this amazing series. And it just worked out. I wasn't looking for it, to be honest. And I'm so happy that it transpired to be here today to share with you. And I met Roger in the process, and we found we have, mutual interests and connections, even though we're not in the same industry, that we've been sharing, getting to know each other. So things like that, you don't really know kind of who's going to be in your network yet, but being open to it and looking beyond just your immediate circle, I think, is really important. The fourth area is around mentors and sponsors. So this is really, really important, and something I learned throughout my career. I think a lot of people initially, once you land that opportunity, or, you have, you're at a company that you want to be at, put your head down and work hard, and you will be noticed. And I think what I've learned, and even talking with Roger, what he's learned is that's great, but you need to build on that, right? You need to be able to think about, what you want next, what you want in your career, and then find mentors and even sponsors who will help you. And sponsors are people who really will be advocate for you when you're not in the room. And mentors are those that have, a shared interest, or someone that you really maybe aspire to be, or you want to learn from, and share that with them. And they often will want to give back along the process. So that has been critically important in terms of building that network, because they may not be someone that you're looking to maybe get your next opportunity, but they're going to be a sounding board for you throughout the process, and you may come back to over time. And that leads me to, my last tenet, which is around regular contact. So I know often, and I'm guilty of it too, you meet someone, everyone gets busy, and then 3 years later, you check in and say, hey, I haven't spoken to you in a while. But I think having a little bit more of a process around it and thinking about who are, the key, who's like almost in your board, who's like your board or your shareholders that you really want to connect with regularly. And they could be mentors, they could be sponsors, or they could be someone that you want to just learn more from, like an informational. And then having that plan to connect with them frequently, I think is really helpful as you think about, your next career opportunity. So these are just a few different frameworks that we put together that I know that have been helpful for us as we've built, our careers. And then, moving on to some networking challenges. Like I said in the beginning, it's an acquired skill. Some people are naturally good at it and some people aren't. And I will admit, when I first started at a business school, even out of college, it did not come naturally to me. It was really something that I saw the word awkward. I saw, maybe uncomfortable. It was a little uncomfortable in the beginning. And I think you have to really overcome some of those barriers. And think about different ways to do that. So we wanted to just kind of put that out there and go through a few of those areas. So one, I think that we found is around cultural barriers, right? So a lot of times, when you're having different conversations, you're trying to find something in common with someone else. Sometimes you can go in with some cultural barriers. So thinking about what are different ways that you can kind of overcome that and really find that common connection with someone else. We keep mentioning this is super important, an action plan. And what this could look like is really as simple as, what do I want to learn and what's my key takeaway? So I think those are the two things that have been really helpful, at least in my different conversations, of not overthinking it. Just what are the two things? What is the one thing I want to learn? And what's the one thing I want to take away? You should always have a takeaway, whether it's a follow-up, whether it's asking for another connection with someone else. That's how you continue to build your network. I think, kind of jumping down to the last two, which I want to touch on, is around beware of over networking. So a lot of times you can say to yourself, well, I need to do this. And then it just doesn't come off genuine. It really doesn't. And you know it, and the other person knows it. So really, again, being strategic about your process is really going to be the most beneficial. And it may take a little bit longer than you expected. And then lastly, own your time. So, this is your opportunity to really make a difference and own your time. So if it's something that doesn't feel genuine to you, or you don't want to spend your time learning about it, then don't. And think about what's the best way to move forward.
And Sarah, I'm going to jump in here before we move on to the next slide with some general experiences that I've had in my challenges, particularly challenges with networking, right? I'm one of those rare breeds of extroverted introverts, all right? So when I show up to an event, I look like I'm very friendly and social, but when I go to a networking event, I tend to become a small person in the room. And I've noticed and learned over time that there's a reason for that, right? First, I have to be cognizant of what is going on in my mind when I show up to these events, right? And it's 9 times out of 10, it's lack of preparation. And I never had a game plan. I showed up because I knew that it was something that was important, that I had to do, that I need to network in order to excel my career or excel my knowledge, or possibly build friends that have a common interest, right? We all want to do something together. But when I go to these events, I kind of shy away to the corner. And so I started looking into, well, is there a blueprint for networking, or is there some sort of formula for charisma? Is there something that someone needs to do when they show up to these events? And it goes back to point number 2 here, which is show up with an action plan, right? I show up with an action plan. I know exactly what I'm looking to do when I show up to the event. For example, if I go to this networking event and I have a gap in knowledge, maybe I want to learn about paid media, Maybe I want to learn about something. Now I have a purpose for being at the event. Maybe I don't want to learn anything, right? And maybe I just want to show up and build a relationship with somebody that has a common interest in marketing or just networking in general. Okay, I still have an action plan for that. I want to learn and develop and build a strong foundation and friendship with somebody with a common interest. So having an action plan very much helps you just shy away from those jitters, stop feeling like you need to go to the corner by the bathroom or the corner by the food because, well, if you eat, you don't have to talk. So it's some of these things that I feel like networking with an action plan really kind of overcomes some of these challenges. Moving on to the next slide. And this titled The Management Mindset, mainly because one of the primary concerns for some students, I would say, or folks who are in an event where there's executive leadership, CEOs, directors, and they don't necessarily have that title, they don't necessarily have that experience, they feel inadequate, or they feel like, well, what exactly am I going to talk to this person about? I have nothing to share. I don't know what to say. And I'm not sure that I can be of value to these people that have this broad world of professional success. What can I say? And so you start framing your mind around KPIs, the benchmarks, the company priorities, or things that you need to talk to these people about. But at the end of the day, they don't know you yet. So I think one of the biggest things is to just create just a standard introduction in terms of who you are as a person, right? What your general interests are. Senior executives are no different than any other person. They have personal goals. They have professional goals. They even have networking goals. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be at the networking events. So I think framing these senior leaders and having the mindset that the management mindset really is rooted on networking, which is just you are a person at the end of the day. So how can I introduce myself to this person in a candid manner with an action plan and maybe facilitate some future introductions for them? Maybe they have somebody that they wanted to meet at this networking event or a general knowledge that they're seeking to gain. So I think one of the most important things here within the management mindset is remove yourself from those barriers that you feel like are setting you back from having these conversations with what you feel like are very influential people or that have climbed that ladder of success, and maybe you feel a bit out of place because you haven't done so yet. Remember, they're where you want to be. So no matter what, a conversation with them will be extremely beneficial for you. So that's one of the points that we wanted to make here in this particular slide. Moving on to the next one. Expanding your circle of influence is boiled it down to 3 E's: experience, exposure, and education, right? Your circle of influence has the potential to give you more experience, give you more exposure, and continue your ongoing education. But if we drill down into the specifics of what you can bring to the table when you're coming into this networking event, I saw one of the actual comments in the chat was to be a giving person, to give, right? Well, what can you give? The more experience you gain and acquire over time, the more you can give and offer to your particular network when you're looking to make these connections, right? Experience can come in the form of job rotations, projects, job shadowing, lead projects, or you can simply just ask somebody, hey, do you need help with anything, right? Is there anything that I can help you with within my skill set, or that you just need a body to be able to kind of do some busy work? That general experience that you'll develop there will transition into exposure to that person and exposure to that person's projects, to that knowledge, that world of knowledge that you're going to gain by just simply being present and being available and being a giving person. So in terms of exposure, you very much want to attend events. The great thing about this particular event is that it's a 2-part event with an online webinar and then an in-person event. So make sure that you guys make the effort to attend the event if you possibly can. That way you get to develop that in-person interaction and an in-person connection with some of these folks and broaden your network. Volunteering, mentoring, professional organizations, coaching. I think these are all great and fantastic opportunities that anyone can do in order to gain exposure and share what they know with the people around them, and then become a sort of SME or subject matter expert where people seek you out for your particular talents and skill set. And ongoing education, I feel like this is part of the always on mentality, right? I think if you're seeking higher education, chances are that you're already in that mindset, right? You're already in the mindset of, hey, I want to learn. I don't want to just stay where I'm at. I want to continue to learn and develop my skills over time so that I can be just more experienced. I can be more knowledgeable, and then I can be able to give more because I know more. And again, those are the 3 E's: experience, exposure, and education. And they all kind of work in a circle, right? You gain education, you go share your experience, you gain your exposure, and you kind of continue to repeat it on and on. Now, showcase.
And Roger,
Yeah.
I'll just jump in there quickly with an example for the exposure piece. So I think I mentioned in the beginning, I actually, recently moved to the Florida area, and obviously, and a new state and meeting new people, and thinking about expanding your circle of influence and your network was really important. But it was interesting. There was one opportunity that, was presented to me. And I have to admit, from a time management standpoint, thinking about, can you fit it in? And I initially said no to this event. It was for, professional women's group networking event. And then I changed my mind and I said, nope, you know what? I'm going to own my time. I'm going to prioritize this. And I didn't have an action plan at first, to be honest, but I knew that I knew I wanted to learn, and I wanted to, meet other professional women, particularly in the local area. And so I prioritized it. That was my action plan at the time, and actually was, incredible because I was able to meet a lot of different, professional women, particularly more locally, in the area, and got to, expand my network there. And I actually ended up meeting the CEO of the organization, who, we connected on a personal level with her background. And I'm now, part of the professional network. It's called the FIU League, if anyone's ever heard of it or wants to learn more about it. And I've already, learned so much from the thought leadership sessions that they had, different networking sessions. So it's just an example I wanted to share because I really wasn't really looking for it. And I honestly didn't know if I wanted to do that, but I, took a step back and I said that this is important to me. I wanted to prioritize my time, and then I went with that action plan to at least just meet 1 or 2 people, and it ended up being a great experience to expand my network more locally. So just some things that, I think that are important, and I wanted to share just as an example, as you guys are thinking about how to, particularly within the exposure section in terms of building your network.
Awesome. And funny enough, thank you for sharing, Sarah, because you reminded me of an experience that I had. I mentioned earlier that I was going to state how playing pickleball, or share the experience of how playing pickleball actually turned into a 6-figure job offer, right? So it goes back to exposure. And again, here I have it focused, and everything here is focused on professional development. But exposure can be as simple as just going out to meet people, doing a sport that you love. I love pickleball. I absolutely love pickleball. And if you think about who is in the pickleball community, not you, Jackie, but majority of the pickleball community is primarily retired folks who have done, they've done very well for themselves in their careers. They know a lot of people, and, they're already over the hump. They're either mentoring, looking to mentor, or looking to facilitate connections are really looking to hire people to kind of take on some of their roles and, whatever it is that they're looking to leave because they want to play pickleball full time. So I'm playing with this guy pickleball, common interactions. We share what I do, what he does for a living, etc. Weeks later, out of the blue, randomly sends me a text message. Hey, Roger, you mind if I give you a call really quick? It's not related to pickleball. Okay, mind you, I didn't tell this guy I needed a job. I didn't have a conversation about work hardly, other than the fact that when we made the initial introduction that I work for City, et cetera, et cetera. But our friendship and relationship has been primarily based on playing pickleball. That's it. I show up to when he invites me to his private court and his private home, and that's really all our relationship has been based on. Well, he sends me a text. I give him a call, or I think he called me, and he's like, "Listen, I want to offer you a job. I work for Sunbelt Systems, and we're looking for folks, somebody to oversee the sales program, particularly somebody to manage it, et cetera, et cetera." I was like, okay, that's interesting. I don't know anything about Sunbelt. I work in finance, project management, et cetera. But it's, I thanked him for the opportunity. I directed him to somebody who I thought would have been a very good fit because at the time I wasn't looking for a job. But this is how these simple relationships, meaningful connections that you make, and it can be as simple as playing pickleball, can turn into some of these job opportunities. So I just wanted to share that as well.
It's a great example. Like I said, it's like planting seeds. Like you don't know what's going to grow yet, but just being open to it. And I was curious, Roger, I wonder if we should ask the group at this point, if anyone, I don't know if anyone is brave enough or would like to share another example, either a success story, a learning, an awkward moment. This is safe space. Figured it may be good if anyone is open to sharing. If not, no pressure, but thought maybe we could ask the group here.
This is a pretty talkative group since I know
Sarah.
most of you personally. Yeah, so let's get that going.
Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
Justin Seidman, cohort 8 and also advisory board member. So one thing I just like to say is I always love to initiate conversations wherever I go, but I find the most important thing is that I capture the contact information. And that's one of the main mistakes I see when people with networking is they initiate a conversation, they have a great conversation, but then they leave and they have no way to get in touch with that person to nurture that relationship. So I'm always, cognizant about connecting with that person on LinkedIn or exchanging contact cards. And I just wanted to make that point. And I think that it's so critical. And, networking has changed my life so much that the last 3 six-figure jobs that I got, I didn't even interview or even submit a resume because I was so well networked that when they offered me the position, they already knew me. And these were small businesses, keep in mind, where they didn't have to go through like any specific protocols. It was up to the owner's discretion, but just through networking and nurturing those relationships. And you just don't know in the future what will happen. So, I was hired in my most recent role that I'm in now by the landlord of my last company.
Wow.
So it's so important to ask people to have lunch, to just nurture those relationships. And I find that by creating content, it's a great way to stay in touch with the people that I meet because I'm always top of mind because they see my posts. And then I make a point to comment on their posts too. And I think that's a very easy way to network as opposed to in the past where we didn't have social media and we had to go and just do it over email or phone calls or text.
Yeah, that's an awesome example. Thank you so much for sharing, Justin. I think, again, little things that are good reminders to make sure you get the contact, make sure you send a follow-up note. And it could be, just hi, it could be nice meeting you, right? And then eventually kind of having that regular contact. And like you said, and we're all kind of in these fields where your network is so important because I don't know the stat offhand, but I know it's very high that most people get another job through your network, right? So you get another opportunity through people you know. And that's why it's so important that you kind of just be open to meeting people and have a way to keep in touch. So I think that's a great example. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And just to take this opportunity to network, if there's anything that I could do for any one of you, please feel free to reach out to me. I will be at the event on Thursday, and I'm
great.
More than welcome to open any doors that I can for anybody here.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin.
So who else wants to share an anecdote?
Well, I put in the chat that I offered to say something, to share. I'm Elizabeth Garami. I was a classmate of Justin, cohort 8. Anyway, I have to say I have not officially applied for a job in my whole life. I was living in Canada, and I went to an event on behalf of my director. And out of a comment, I'm born in Venezuela. So out of a comment of saying, well, I wish I could live in a warmer weather. 2 years later, I kept in touch with the associate director at the University of Florida. And 2 years later, I got an email saying, are you interested in a job? And the rest is history. That's how I moved to Florida. And every single job has been like this, is an opportunity to network. And I think network is not only you going and reaching when you need something, but just to be open and just have a regular conversation. I think one of you mentioned you're a human being first. You got interests, you got things to offer. Remember that people who got to those positions they had a first date too. They were nervous too. So it's giving and receiving and being open to have discussions. So I second Justin's offer. If I could do anything for anybody, I'm still at FIU. I work in technology and licensing and patents innovation. So I'm on campus. So somebody said coffee, happy hour, I'm available. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for sharing that, Elizabeth. Righty, and I think I do have a question for you guys. Matter of fact, Elizabeth, Justin, since you guys have shared some experiences, I feel like you guys are some more advanced networkers, right? You're not afraid and you're not shy to reach out to folks. But what would be your advice to somebody who is just starting out, who is a bit more nervous, who is a bit more, who hasn't had the opportunity to receive some of these benefits from networking, which is not having to apply for a role? For those active applicants that are really trying hard to get a job, they're applying but they're really not getting anywhere, or people that are just struggling to network, what would be some of the advice that you would share based off of your experiences?
So, in one case, it's kind of a numbers game in the sense that the more people you reach out to, the more likely you are to find that people are going to be open to meeting with you. So every no is closer to a yes. That's just one tip. And I think that people, they like to feel important. They like to help people. So if you ask, for someone to mentor you or somebody to connect you, and I love when people ask me that. So, I think it's an easy ask, and it's just a matter of putting yourself out there. And, in most cases, when you do what you're afraid of, the fear goes away. So it's a matter of just, of putting yourself out there. And one thing I would say that I stopped asking people when I network, what do you do? I asked them, what do you love to do? And that opens the conversation up more than beyond just professional, the world, because some people might not like talking about, say, accounting, but they might love talking about pickleball. So, you could try saying, so what do you love to do with your time? And it just makes it a little bit more open conversation.
Awesome points. Awesome points. I agree. Play the numbers game. Put yourself out there, don't be shy, and you never know what to expect. What about you, Elizabeth?
Well, I mean, and I think your question was more like, what was day zero when we first decided, okay, we want to go and network?
Right.
I think volunteering is a great opportunity. You know, just connecting with people. The more that you connect with people without an agenda, I think it would be great practice, because I mean, again, it's almost like when you want to interview for a job and you go to jobs that you might not really wish, you know, it's not your ultimate favorite job, but you want to practice your interview skills. So go out, put yourself out there, go to volunteer events of your interest, talk to people in general, and observe. You know, maybe just go there and just observe what other people do, and maybe go with a friend to an event. I mean, I think the FIU has a sales club, that it would be something interesting for the students to, or the people to see how they brand themselves, how do they present themselves, how do they sell themselves. So
I agree. I thank you very much for sharing. Reason I asked you both, naturally, because you made a comment and you addressed some of this, but because it's a universal thing that we're giving some perspective, but it's an art more than a science, right? So to each person is going to have a general process that they will develop over creating a game plan, but at the same time, there are some fundamental layers that you can kind of follow as your baseline. So I
There's
just wanted to
also
get
some
you guys.
good, oh, sorry, there's some good
No
comments
worries.
that came in the chat. Daryl was saying he kind of has a spin on Justin's opener. You know, what are you passionate about right now? So kind of getting it away, a little bit away from work and a little bit more just kind of into, you know, general interest. And then Professor St. Louise has a good one here too. What is top of mind on your to-do list? So that kind of helps frame up the conversation. So I think that those are some other good ones for people who are just kind of looking for how to start the conversation, right? So it's one thing, how to get yourself in the room, but then once you're in the room, what do you want to say? I think that those are some great openers as well that people can make note of and kind of tweak and make their own.
Agreed.
Yeah.
And Rogelio, if I can add to that, I mean, for most people that know me, they know me as a runner. They know me as a lady who did the 50 states. They don't know what I do for a living. I mean, they have no idea. I'm not defined by my job. So I got a lot of interest. I'm a baseball fan, but so, I mean, get to know
Fantastic.
and you know, if you're gonna go to an event, and I forgot, I didn't comment on this. If you want to go to an event, do your research. You know, which companies are gonna be there, what do they do, what are you passionate about? Did you see any news release or anything, a story about it, or do you know who's gonna attend the conference? I mean, they have a LinkedIn profile most likely, so you know, where did they study?
It's a
You know,
perfect segue. Oh, sorry to cut you off, Elizabeth. I think fantastic. It's actually a perfect segue into showcasing your success, which really is a combination of what Justin, you, Elizabeth, are saying, what everyone else is kind of addressing in some of these comments, which is, you know, how do you get in front of and showcase your knowledge, right? No one knows exactly what you know. No one knows what you have done. I'll give you, just before I even get into these points, I'll give you some general a small experience that I had. I showed up to the director of marketing at Citi and I said, hey, I'm interested in joining your team. She said, whoa, I didn't even know you were interested in marketing, right? So the thing is, we have this idea and this vision in our mind that we may think or assume that somebody else knows, but we have to really showcase. Several different mediums are very useful for this. You can absolutely use social media, as Justin was saying. You can use these networking events to create exposure, but showcasing your success can have a formula, and it kind of looks like a sales pitch a little bit. It's your elevator pitch a bit, which is once they start asking the dreaded questions. So what do you do for work, or what do you do? A lot of people tend to get stuck in that particular question because they either just say, hey, I work for, I don't know, I work for Citi. Okay, but what do you do at Citi? Really, what do you know how to do? How can you possibly help me if I'm within your network? Or is it simply, hey, this person works at Citi. Citi has the legal, the compliance, the marketing, the sales, wealth management, brokerage, etc. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do in most businesses. And actually helping guide folks into what you know how to do really kind of helps, first of all, direct some of the conversation into a playing field that you're more comfortable in and talking about. But second, and this is all focused on professional, but second, it's also gives you a topic for conversation, something to talk about. If you want to direct the conversation when they ask you, what do you do, to some of your passion projects. Like you were saying, Elizabeth, you're the runner. You're known as a person who runs. That is how you want to be reflected. Your work doesn't define you. You actually want to be recognized based off of, your general passions and hobbies, and you sprinkle in some of the things that you know how to do and what to do. So here we mentioned, and let me move this because I can't see, a general audience. So as Elizabeth was saying, if you're going to a networking event, chances are you may get an idea of who will show up, right? And if you have a general idea, then you know what research you can do. Chances are, if they have a LinkedIn profile, you can look them up on LinkedIn. It's so easy to get a background on a person nowadays and to have a topic for conversation. But remember that the initial conversation tends to be around just the human element of the person, right? What they like doing, what are their goals, what is on their to-do list, their immediate to-do list, everything that we've been mentioning in the chat and what's been talked about. What is the action that you perform? How can you briefly provide details of the work that you've performed or the accomplishments that you've had? What is the value that this work has had on the community, on your job, on your life in general? And what's the general impact that this work has had throughout your lifetime or throughout anybody else's life? So this is a general showcasing your success, quote unquote, guideline for you to really learn how to expose your success. If you just work hard, and this is something that Sarah alluded to in the very beginning of the presentation, working hard is great, but it's a foundational stepping stone to then learning how to expose your hard work to the appropriate people, right? If you just work hard with your head down and your feet moving, there's only so far you're going to get because no one will really know what you have done. But if you learn how to showcase your success through your network, through your sponsors, through the people that you've met, and you start creating a general game plan of how you're going to do that, then I guarantee you'll see some very fairly immediate success on getting closer to the professional goals that you have. I'm going to turn it back over to Sarah here because this is we're reaching the end towards the key takeaways, and then we have a brief little checklist that you guys can use, actionable checklist you can use on the in-person event. But back to you, Sarah.
Great. Yeah, thanks, Roger. So just, to wrap up with a few different takeaways. And again, thank you everyone else, in the group for sharing comments. But a few things that we wanted to just keep top of mind as you go to the networking event on Thursday and beyond. One is, like we said, network with an action plan. This doesn't need to be a full-fledged strategy. This could literally just be, I want to learn something and I would like to meet one other person, but at least having some goals in mind will mitigate some of your fears if you have them, and make the process a little bit easier. The second is an always-on mindset. This is very important, to me, and I know to Roger, but and even Justin alluded to it. Networking is always on. It's something that isn't just one point in time, and you don't know who you're going to meet and how they're going to impact you along the way, and vice versa. In terms of expanding your circle of influence, think about how you can pay it forward. I think everyone is empowered to do that, and it builds a lot of not only your own success and connections, but also gratitude to help others. So as you think about your circle of influence, think about it beyond just your team and your company, and also just who you're going to meet and how you can expand that through different certifications, professional networks, education certificates. You never know who you're going to meet and how they're going to impact you. And then make sure showcase your success. Something that I like to do that I did not do when I first, started out in some of my first roles was, keeping a list of your accomplishments. I think particularly, and I'll address the question around, a different gender, bias in the workplace, as well as, as sexism, I guess, as you can call it, as you go through different networking. But I think something often, particularly as a woman, is we're often don't showcase our success, and we don't, think about how we can showcase our accomplishments. So I think making sure you do that, but also keep a list. It's really important that you note your successes and how you're going to share that with others. And then, the last two kind of go together, but trust the process and keep learning. Like we said in the beginning, this is a learned skill. It may come naturally to some people. For others, it doesn't. It really didn't for me, in the beginning, I'll be honest. And it was something that was very uncomfortable, and I really had to work at it, and really, teach myself how to network, what to say, what types of conversations, and enjoy it, really open yourself up to enjoy the process. And I think the more you do that, the more you'll see the benefits. So those are just a few different takeaways. I hope this was helpful. Roger's going to go through something that I think maybe Jackie may be sharing with the group and and everyone on the call. The next slide, if you want to go to that, Roger. More of a checklist, again, so you guys can actually take away and refer back to if you need it.
Right. And a lot of the points within this checklist, and thank you, Sarah, a lot of points within this checklist were mentioned in some of the advice, for example, the follow-up plan, right? Going into your physical in-person networking event, it's a good idea to have some goals, right? And this is everything that we've kind of mentioned throughout this presentation. What are your general networking goals, right? Is there a way that you can get a copy of the attendees? Maybe you know who you want to network with, and that's a comment from Anthony within the chat. Is there a game plan that you can kind of formulate? Are there some stories that you can prepare of yourself? Is there something that kind of lowers your fear or concerns of when you actually show up to the networking event? Do you have your elevator pitch ready? By that, we mean a concise pitch for the question when you get, what do you do for work? Or tell me a little bit about yourself, right? Do you have some general structure around what to talk about? Active listening and genuine conversation. This is just a quick checkpoint to know, hey, don't fake this conversation, or at least if you do, expect to have less than a meaningful connection, simply because the person will feel it. You will know it, the person will feel it, and it'll just kind of fly by. Now, will you make a meaningful connection with every single person that's there? Not likely, right? But can you make an introduction to then follow up, which is the very next point, to then follow up later on with as part of your general game plan? Absolutely. Absolutely. And you never know how that just brief introduction that you had with this person can then turn into a potential opportunity or a lasting friendship later on. So develop your follow-up plan, how and what you're going to follow up and what channel. That goes to make sure that you get their contact information, whether it's LinkedIn. Most people are comfortable sharing either their LinkedIn or social media profiles, more so than they are their emails or their personal cell phone. So, I mean, start small and feel it out as you develop, but for sure have a follow-up plan. And then giving and reciprocity, which is something that was mentioned as a comment and also throughout the presentation. As the more you give, the more you'll get, right? So if, and you may feel like you don't have anything to give. Trust me, that couldn't be further from the truth. You just have to sit down and understand what your general talents and skill sets are, and what your life experiences have taught you, and how you can then turn those into a conversation that can turn into a meaningful connection. So this networking checklist will be shared with you later on. I believe this entire presentation will be shared with you folks, but I do want to take this time to thank you guys very, very, very much for attending. And I'm going to turn it over back to Jackie to open it up for Q&A if we have time.
Roger and Sarah, thank you so much for putting this really great presentation together. I think from all of us that were here as attendees, whether we heard something new for the first time, or maybe it was just a good reminder and we hadn't been thinking about it for a while, I think this was an excellent conversation to just kind of get people reinvigorated and thinking about networking in a little bit, maybe in a different way than they had been before. So we do have just a couple of minutes if there's any last minute questions. And then I will definitely wrap it up so that we are on time, since I realize that this is most people's lunch hour.
Very well done for everyone. Your synchronization makes me feel like you both work at the same company.
Sarah's fantastic. So is Jackie. So I have all the credits to them.
Well, thank you everyone so much. You know, as I said, Roger and Sarah for putting this session together for us, for all of the alums that came out. So great to see some of you either on screen or see your names on the chat. Thank you for the current students that are here, the faculty that came out, advisory board members. I saw you guys in there. So it's just, we have such a great MSM community. Someone just said MSM family. I didn't want to sound too weird, but I agree. So thank you all so much. This is such a great network, literally, pun intended, that we've all kind of spent years building together and being a part of and nurturing. And so I'm just so glad to continue to be a part of it and help to be at the forefront for everyone that's been involved. I hope to see a lot of you at the networking event on Thursday if you happen to be in town. If you're unable to make it to that for a variety of reasons, I'm excited to announce that we're actually going to be kicking off an entire webinar series that's centered around sharpening your soft skills, kind of more of these classroom topics that are very important in helping everybody advance their careers. So there'll be more on that in the coming months, and hopefully we'll be able to keep this family connected through lots of those activities and other things that'll be coming up through 2024. So stay tuned for that. Have a great rest of your day, and I hope to see a lot of you again really, really soon.
Thank
care.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Yeah, see you Thursday.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.